Friends, have you ever faced a problem that seemed so big, so impossible? It was like a massive, unbreakable wall standing in your way. We've all been there. But let me tell you a story about a real wall, a legendary wall, and an incredible power of faith that brought it down. This is the story of Jericho. Imagine the scene. The people of Israel, after 40 long years of wandering in the desert, finally stand at the edge of the promised land. But there's a huge obstacle in their path, the mighty Jordan River. Swollen and raging at flood stage, how could they possibly cross? It seemed like their journey was over before it had even truly begun. But their leader, Joshua, trusted in a power greater than the river's current. God gave them a specific instruction. The priests, carrying the sacred Ark of the Covenant, were to step into the roaring water. It must have taken incredible courage, but as soon as their feet touched the river's edge, something miraculous happened. The waters upstream stopped flowing. They piled up in a heap far away, and the riverbed became dry ground. The entire nation of Israel walked across, with walls of water standing on either side, their eyes fixed on the promise ahead. They had witnessed a miracle, a powerful sign that God was with them. But their biggest challenge was yet to come. Before them rose the city of Jericho. This wasn't just any city. It was a fortress, renowned for its immense, thick walls that seemed to scrape the sky. It was a symbol of human strength and military might, seemingly impenetrable. From a human perspective, taking this city was an impossible task. The Israelites were wanderers, not a trained siege army. How could they possibly conquer such a stronghold? Standing in the shadow of those towering walls, fear and doubt could have easily taken over. But once again, Joshua turned to God for the battle plan. And the instructions he received were, to say the least, very unusual. God's plan had nothing to do with ladders, battering rams, or catapults. It was a test of obedience and faith. He told Joshua, "For 6 days, you and your army are to march around the city once each day. The priests will carry 7 trumpets made from ram's horns, walking ahead of the Ark of the Covenant. But you must all be completely silent. No one is to shout, or even speak a word. The only sound will be the blast of the trumpets." Can you imagine how strange that must have looked to the people watching from Jericho's walls? An entire army, marching in silent procession day after day. They were probably confused, maybe even mocking them. It made no military sense whatsoever. This wasn't a strategy of war. It was an act of worship, a declaration of trust. For 6 straight days, the Israelites obeyed. They walked their lap, the sound of the trumpets echoing, their faith being forged in the furnace of patience and silent obedience. They were learning to rely not on their own strength, but on God's promise. Then came the 7th day. This was the day everything would change. God's instructions for this day were different. On the 7th day, he commanded, "You are to march around the city 7 times. 7 laps." The priests would blow the trumpets as before, but this time, at the end of the final lap, something new would happen. Joshua gathered the people and said, "When you hear the long blast from the trumpets, I want every single one of you to shout. Shout with all the strength you have." The army began to march, once, twice, 3 times around the city. The tension must have been immense. 4, 5, 6 times. The people of Jericho watched, perhaps nervously now. What was the meaning of this bizarre ritual? Finally, the 7th lap was complete. The priests raised their trumpets and let out a long, powerful blast that echoed across the plain. At that signal, Joshua gave the command to shout, "For the Lord has given you the city." And at that moment, a sound like thunder erupted from the Israelites. It wasn't just a battle cry, it was a shout of faith, a unified roar of belief in God's promise. And then, the impossible happened. The ground shook. Not from an earthquake, but from the power of God. The massive, impenetrable walls of Jericho didn't just get a crack or a hole. They crumbled. They collapsed. They fell flat into a pile of rubble. The path into the city was wide open. Jericho had fallen, not to a mighty army, but to the mighty hand of God. The story of Jericho isn't just an ancient tale. It's a powerful reminder for every single one of us. We all have Jericho walls in our lives. They might be walls of fear, of doubt, of addiction, of a difficult relationship, or a seemingly impossible dream. They look too big, too strong, and too intimidating to ever overcome. We try to knock them down with our own strength and fail time and time again. But this story teaches us a different way. It teaches us that some walls aren't meant to be broken down by our power, but by our faith. It's about following God's plan, even when it doesn't make sense to us. It's about being patient, obedient, and trusting that He is working behind the scenes. And it's about knowing when it's time to shout to release our faith and declare victory in His name. So, what are the walls in your life today? What seems impossible? Remember Jericho. Trust in God, follow His lead, and watch as He does what only He can do. Because with faith, no wall is too high, and no obstacle is too great. The same God who brought down the walls of Jericho can bring down the walls in your life too. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more content that inspires faith. We'd love to hear from you. So share your thoughts in the comments below. See you next time.